Hello, everybody. It's story time with Teacher Gabe. Today we're reading Too Many Pumpkins by Linda White and illustrated by Megan Lloyd. All right, let's see. I had to zoom in because the words were a little small for me. Every year at springtime, Rebecca Estelle planted just enough seeds in her garden to grow vegetables for the long winter. She planted carrots and beans, tomatoes and peas, corn and rutabagas. She grew a little bit of everything, except pumpkins. Rebecca Steele hated pumpkins. When she was a little girl, money had been scarce. For an entire month, all there had been to eat were pumpkins. Baked pumpkins, steamed pumpkins, boiled pumpkins, stewed pumpkins, mashed pumpkins, rotten pumpkins, breakfast pumpkins, lunch pumpkins, dinner pumpkins. Enough pumpkins. When things finally improved and there was more money to buy food, Rebecca Steele decided she would never eat pumpkins again, or even look at one, not ever. And she didn't until one autumn day, long after Rebecca Steele's hair had turned snowy white, she was raking the leaves that fell each fall from her black walnut tree, and her cat, Esmeralda, was scattering them just as quickly. All of a sudden, the pumpkin truck passed by. Oh, she heard it coming, and she knew what it was. It rumbled by at harvest time every year. She turned her back and concentrated on picking up the last fallen leaf. She managed to ignore the truck until splat! An enormous pumpkin tumbled off the truck and smashed into slimy orange smithereens all over the edge of her yard. Come back here and get this pumpkin, she yelled, but the driver sped away. Oh my, it's a lot of pumpkin all over her yard. Well, I won't touch it, Rebecca Estelle insisted, getting her shovel from the barn. And I won't look at it, she added as she shoveled dirt on top of the pumpkin pieces. I won't think about the pumpkin ever again, she declared, and she didn't until spring, when Rebecca Steele was admiring the new sprouts in her garden. She noticed Esmeralda playing with some big green leaves growing at the edge of her yard. How curious, she said, going over to inspect them. I didn't plant anything there. Then Rebecca still remembered the pumpkin truck and the slimy pumpkin smithereens. Pumpkin, she cried in disgust. Come out of there, Esmeralda. I will not water those plants. I will not tend them. I will ignore them, and they will die. She picked up Esmeralda and stomped inside. But a week later, when Rebecca still peered out her window, she saw the vines had grown. I guess the vines didn't need her help. She tramped to the barn, got her garden tools, and went to work on the pumpkin vines. She cut and dug until not one was left growing. There, now there will be no pumpkins, she smiled and went back inside. But the next week, when she was weeding the garden, she noticed that the pumpkin vines had grown back. Rebecca Steele marched inside and snapped the curtain shut. The only thing to do is ignore them. They won't grow if I don't take care of them, she muttered. So rain or shine, all spring and summer, she never looked out the front window. She used only the back door and never even glanced toward the vines. Neither did Esmeralda. Rebecca still ignored the vines so well that in time she forgot why she wasn't using the front door until one autumn day when she and Esmeralda went to rake the leaves that fell each fall from the black walnut tree in front of the house. Pumpkins, Rebecca still shrieked. Oh my, that's a lot of pumpkins she's got there. Pumpkin vines had twined under the bushes, over the bird bath, through the porch rails, and onto the rocking chair. The entire yard was a sea of plump, round pumpkins. Rebecca Steele could no longer ignore them. She plopped down on the pumpkin nearest to her, putting her hands over her face. "Whatever will I do, Esmeralda?" she cried. "How will I get rid of this many pumpkins?" She thought and she thought. Her mind went back to all pumpkins she had eaten as a young girl, when pumpkins were the only food her family had. "Well, we can't let them stay here," she told Esmeralda. "Some people might need these pumpkins, and I suppose there are folks crazy enough to like them. We'll give them away." She marched off to get her wheelbarrow. Barrow. Rebecca Steele struggled to lift the first pumpkin, then the second pumpkin, and the third. She huffed and she puffed, and she wheeled the loaded wheelbarrow into the lane. "I'm so I'm too tired to deliver these heavy pumpkins now," Rebecca Steele grumbled. She mopped her brow with her apron and wondered what to do next. "Perhaps if I make them into pies, they will be easier to deliver. Such a nuisance." So she went to work. She scooped the slimy seeds out of the pumpkins and cut away at the shells. After she boiled the pumpkin meat, she mixed it with eggs, milk, sugar, flour, cinnamon, nutmeg, and cloves to make rich pies. Then Rebecca Steele made pumpkin tarts, pumpkin muffins, pumpkin cakes, pumpkin bread, pumpkin pudding, pumpkin cookies, until pumpkin dishes spilled out of every cupboard and cubbyhole, and the seeds were a mountain in the corner. "Well, that's the first batch," Rebecca Steele said, dusting her floury hands. "Now to deliver 'em." "Oh my, that's only the first batch? She's got a lot of pumpkins." She put the wheelbarrow outside of the kitchen door, then loaded it with pumpkin treats. When it was full, just the thought of delivering all those pumpkin dishes made Rebecca Steele tired. "If only people would come get them," she said. Then she had an idea. Rebecca Steele whirled around and hurried back into the house for a kitchen knife. "This should get people to come," Rebecca Steele cried. "I don't know what she's going to do with the kitchen knife." She took her knife and sat in the middle of the pumpkin patch. She carved a smiling face on a nice round pumpkin, a scary snaggletooth face on a tall, thin pumpkin, and Boo on a short, squat pumpkin. She was so busy carving pumpkins she hardly noticed how dark it was getting. When she could no longer see, she went to the shelf on the back porch and got the sack of candles she kept for emergencies. "If this doesn't get people to come here, we'll have to deliver them all ourselves," she muttered to Esmeralda. Oh my, she carved a lot of pumpkins. Rebecca Steele peered into the darkness for a long time. She didn't see anything. Still, she watched until finally she saw a light, faint at first, then brighter, and then more lights bobbing through the night. "Here they come," she shouted. "Esmeralda, let's heat some apple cider." Young and old, everyone in town came. "Rebecca Steele, we thought you hated pumpkins," they said. "We saw your jack-o'-lanterns from the end of the road and came for a closer look." "I was hoping you would," said Rebecca Steele. "Where did you ever find all these pumpkins?" people asked. "I came by them quite by accident," Rebecca Steele said, smiling. "Would you like some pumpkin pie? There's plenty." She winked at Esmeralda. Everyone enjoyed the pumpkin pie and cider and had a good time. So did Rebecca Steele. And when they were ready to go home, she made sure each carried a jack-o'-lantern, a bag of seeds for roasting, and a pumpkin treat. Rebecca Steele gave away everything that reminded her of the pumpkins she had always hated until all that remained was a handful of seeds. Those she tucked snugly into her pocket, where they would be safe until planting time next spring. All right, and that was Too Many Pumpkins. It seems she ended up liking the pumpkins in the end. Alright, next we have Dora's Eggs by Julie Sykes and illustrated by Jane Chapman. Dora's Eggs. Oh, it seems like I have to make this one a little bigger too. It's a little hard for me to read. Dora was sitting on a nest of eggs. They were shiny brown and smooth to touch. "These are my very first eggs," clucked Dora proudly. "I must get all my friends to come and admire them." Dora climbed out of the henhouse and into the farmyard. "Who shall I visit first?" she wondered. "I know. I'll go find Debbie Duck." Dora hopped over the fence and across the field until she reached the pond. "Hello, Debbie," she called. "Would you like to come and see my eggs?" "I can't come now," quacked Debbie. "I'm I'm teaching my babies to swim." Dora stood watching the ducklings splashing around and learning to paddle. Somehow, she felt a bit less excited. "My eggs are nice," she thought, "but those fluffy ducklings are much nicer." Dora was just a little sad as she trotted over to the sty to visit Penny Pig. "Hello, Penny," she clucked. "Would you like to come and see my eggs?" But Penny didn't hear. She was having too much fun tumbling around with her wriggly piglets. Dora gave a little sigh. "My eggs are nice," she thought, "but those wriggly piglets are much nicer." Dora gave another little sigh as she climbed the hill to find Sally Sheep. "Would you like to come see my eggs?" she asked Sally. "Not today," bleated Sally. "I'm too busy keeping an eye on my lambs." Dora looked at the lambs frolicking in the field. She felt rather glum. "My eggs are nice," she thought, "but those playful lambs are much nicer." Very sadly, Dora walked back to the farmyard. On her way, she bumped into Daisy Dog. "Hello, Daisy," clucked Dora. "Would you like to come and see my eggs?" "Sorry, Dora," barked Daisy, wagging her tail. "I can't come now. I'm taking my puppies for a walk." Excuse me. Dora was beginning to feel quite miserable. "My eggs are nice," she thought, "but those cute puppies out there for a walk are much nicer." In the farmyard, Dora stopped at the cowshed. She wished she felt happier. Perhaps Clarissa the cow would cheer her up. "Would you like to see my eggs?" she called. "Shh," mooed Clarissa softly, nodding at the straw. Snuggling up by her feet was a newborn calf, fast asleep. Dora wanted to cry. "My eggs are nice, but that little calf all snuggled up is much nicer." Dora walked back across the yard in the sunlight and climbed into the henhouse. Her eggs were just as she had left them, smooth and brown and very still. "My eggs are nice," sighed Dora, fluffing out her feathers, "but everyone else's babies are much nicer." She'll probably like them a lot better once her eggs hatch. Very sadly, Dora settled herself down onto her nest. Crack! Dora jumped up in surprise. "Oh no," cried Dora. "I've broken them." Tears began to roll down her face. They splashed onto the nest and over the cracked eggs. As each tear fell, the cracks grew wider and wider, until suddenly up popped a fluffy head, then another, and another. Soon the nest was full of tiny chicks. "Cheep, cheep!" the chicks peeped. "Cheep, cheep!" Dora stopped crying and stared at her babies. It didn't matter that the eggs were broken. The new chicks were everything Dora had ever wanted. Proudly she strutted out to the farmyard, and one by one the chicks followed after her. All the animals stopped and looked. "Why, Dora," quacked Debbie, "they're as fluffy as my ducklings, and wriggly as my piglets," oinked Penny. "They're as playful as my lambs," bayed Sally. "And you can take them for walks, just like my puppies," barked Daisy. "But best of all," mooed Clarissa, "your chicks can snuggle up to you, like my calf snuggles up to me." "Cluck," said Dora happily, agreeing with her friends. "My eggs were nice, but my chicks are much nicer." All right, and that was Dora's Eggs. All right, and that's all the stories I have today. Thank you guys for joining me. I hope you guys have a good day.